hinges now on the Democrats of whether this government stays open or not.
I really believe the Democrats want to shut down.
We sincerely hope that cooler heads will prevail.
This is like giving you a bowl of doggy doo.
A new report reveals FISA abuse from the FBI and the DOJ during the election.
Is this happening in America or is this the KGB? That's how alarming it is.
People like Rod Rosenstein and Bruce Orr need to be fired immediately.
A U.S. Marshal making the ultimate sacrifice. Deputy Christopher Hill was shot and killed while serving a search warrant in Pennsylvania.
He will be missed, and words cannot say how much.
Because of our tax cuts, Ken will save almost $2,200 in income taxes.
It was an incredible honor. Obviously, I'm never going to forget.
And if I had a head of hair like that, I would have been president years ago, Ken.
At midnight, are they going to turn out the lights? Actually, you know, when you look at the things that would actually close in the government shutdown, there's not that much. People would continue to get Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security. Museums might close. Some national parks might close. But what's interesting is the administration has already said that they would not weaponize the shutdown as they did during the Obama years.
And weaponize, like, for example, shut down the World War II memorial
and
big
signs closed because of government shutdown. Right. They wouldn't do that.
I remember they tried to shut down Mount Vernon, and then Mount Vernon goes, excuse me, we're privately funded. Can you get your barriers out of here?
Oops-a-daisy. So what's going to happen in Washington after the House passed that short-term funding bill? Well, look at the Capitol, where time is running out to avoid a government shutdown at midnight.
The House did their job. They passed a stopgap spending bill overnight and to keep the lights on through midnight, setting up a Senate showdown, and that's happening today.
Garrett Tenney is live down in Washington, where all eyes are on the Senate now to do something. Garrett?
Well, good morning, y'all. Buckle up for a long weekend, because with just about 17 hours to go until a government shutdown, lawmakers don't appear to be any closer to reaching a deal. And Republicans are facing an uphill battle to get this done. They need 60 votes in the Senate to break a filibuster. But 3 GOP senators have already said they plan to vote against the short-term spending bill. That means Republican leaders will need to get some help from at least 13 Democrats. And that's why yesterday, House Speaker Paul Ryan said at this point, whether or not there's a government shutdown is entirely up to the Democrats.
Senator Schumer, do not shut down the federal government. Do not jeopardize funding for our military and for our national security. Do not jeopardize funding for the Children's Health Insurance Program. It is risky, it is reckless, and it is wrong.
The House's short-term spending bill, or continuing resolution as it's called, included a 6-year extension of the Children's Health Insurance Program, which was meant to attract Democratic votes. It also included a delay for several taxes associated with the Affordable Care Act, and that was to win over some conservatives. But Democratic leaders are upset about what was not included in the bill, a fix for DACA. And so far, they are standing firm in vowing to block any bill that doesn't address the Dreamers. Today, we're told Majority Leader Mitch McConnell plans to hold a number of tough votes to put the pressure on vulnerable Democrats from states that President Trump won. And we'll see if that works. But if not, they are planning to be here throughout the weekend. Back to y'all.
Mitch McConnell will keep the lights on in the Senate, even if there is a shutdown. Garrett, thank you very much.
And you got to credit the Freedom Caucus, too. I mean, they did not want to vote for this continuing resolution. You know what they stand for. But they realized that no Democrats, except for a handful, were going to vote for it. They got together and said, we're not going to stop it in the House. We're going to push it to the Senate.
Right. And I believe they got some concessions on some other things. So they were all yeses. Kellyanne Conway, I believe, is on the north lawn of the White House this morning.
Hello.
There she is.
Good morning.
Hey, Kellyanne, good morning to you. Okay, so it has gone through the House. Now it looks like the Senate Democrats are going to roadblock it. You know, polls show that 70% of Americans favor some sort of a DACA fix. But do they favor shutting down the government over that?
They certainly do not. And it really is regrettable that the Democrats are willing to shut down the government, which means not just saying no to President Trump, but saying no to our military, saying no to a longer-term extension of the Children's Health Program, saying no to federal workers getting their paychecks. Look at the paycheck president just yesterday in Pennsylvania, bringing Ken onto the stage and talking about the raises, the bonuses millions of Americans now are literally receiving. So the same people who said no to Apple's 20,000 new jobs, said no to the massive tax cut that is repatriating trillions of dollars in wealth, including $38 billion it's estimated from Apple alone, said no to the single mom with 2 children getting a tax break this year that she well deserves. The same people who said no to that are now saying no to funding our military, no to providing children with health care. DACA, it has until March to be fixed. And this president has said publicly, transparently for the whole world to see, that he is willing to do that. He is the great deal maker and negotiator. But I find it really regrettable that for petty partisan political reasons and also as an audition for 2020, playing to the left-wing base, you have otherwise responsible members of the Senate being willing to shut down the government for this reason. It truly is regrettable. Also, opioid treatment centers are at risk. Is Sherrod Brown in Ohio, who's up for re-election this year and has one of the most massive opioid abuse and death problems in this nation, stood with the president in the Oval Office just last week as the president signed the Interdict Act into law. Is he going to go home and tell people in Ohio, because of DACA, I am not there to fund these opioid treatment centers? It's regrettable.
And it sounds like you're not going to address it. You have till at least March 5th, and thanks to that court order, maybe even to June. But let me tell you what Jonah Goldberg said last night on Special Report. He said that if this government shut down, he goes, the Democratic messaging runs against Donald Trump's interests. Chaos is going to get blamed on Trump, fairly or not. Republicans are getting momentum. It's starting to look better for 2018. We're not talking about the Apple move. We're talking about the shutdown. That works to the Democrats' advantage. Do you agree with that?
Not necessarily, and here's why. 2018 looks very differently than 2010, when President Obama, as the party in power, his Democratic Party, suffered what he called a good old-fashioned shellacking thereabouts. And what's different is, by 2010 and even in 2014, you had Democrats trying to justify their votes for Obamacare, for the Affordable Care Act, which wasn't wearing well. Insurers were fleeing the exchanges, premiums were exploding, people were losing their wages, their jobs, certainly their health care benefits. Quality and access were reduced, costs were rising. This is different with the tax cuts. Republicans are going to run on the tax cuts, and they're going to show what unified government looks like. And the tax cuts are wearing well because people were lied to. They were lied to for months. This won't pass, and if it passes, it only benefits the wealthy. It'll never benefit the working man, working woman. It's a sop to the special interests, the wealthy, the well-connected. That's what the tax code, that's who the tax code already benefited. Under Donald Trump's leadership and really just a straight party line vote, which I think is also unfortunate, you saw Democrats resist being on the right side of history's massive tax cut. You see people like Ken. So I think that folks see who the resistors are and who the folks are making progress in this town. And they're going to see that again here. Look, when President Trump talks about immigration, he has a 70-point immigration plan. He has put forth 4 major principles that are important in striking this deal. When Democrats talk immigration, they only talk about DACA. They're not talking about border security. They're not talking about funding that wall. They're not talking about ending chain migration, the visa lottery system. They're thumbing their nose at the 10,000 or so new ICE agents that the president has said in his plan we should have to equip these brave men and women at the border with the resources they need to do their jobs.
Kellyanne, I know we're going to talk about the president's first year coming up, but during that first year, a headline for us has been, how did the Trump campaign, why did they get spied on during the campaign? We've talked about the dirty dossier, Fusion GPS. Yesterday, there was some shocking news revealed. Many people are saying this is actually worse than Watergate. We wanted to ask you about it. House Intelligence Committee gets this memo that allegedly reveals FISA abuse by senior DOJ and FBI officials related to the Trump campaign investigation. What do you know, and how big of a story is this?
All I'll say is that those who have seen it do seem outraged and are saying hashtag it's trying to release the memo. So I think all those who have been calling for 1 year plus of transparency and accountability and let it all hand, let's learn everything we can. Let's not leave any stone unturned when it comes to Russia and collusion and shenanigans during the campaign last year. I hope that they stick with that today and moving forward. So that's what I know. Look, when I think of the Trump campaign, I think of many things, but I have to say in September 2016, it was such a moment of inflection and distinction between the two candidates who were running when then candidate Donald Trump signed a letter promising to do 4 big things if he was elected president for the pro-life movement, and he's delivered. And today, on the 45th anniversary of the March for Life, Donald J. Trump will be the first sitting president to address the March for Life through live remarks. He will do it by satellite video feed here in the Rose Garden. The pro-life movement is so excited that he reinstated Mexico City policy, one of the first things he did, so that taxpayers here aren't paying for abortions abroad. He took away the UN Population Fund, where we're forcing our taxpayers to fund abortions and sterilizations abroad. He nominated to the Supreme Court and indeed got confirmed Justice Neil M. Gorsuch, whose mark on American jurisprudence will last for generations and decades. He's filled those circuit courts with 12 judges, also in the same mold. And just yesterday, it was announced that our Department of Health and Human Services now has a new division on conscience rights and protections. This will protect those medical students, those practitioners who feel they must choose between their jobs and their conscience rights. Why are the Little Sisters of the Poor forced to provide abortions and abortifacients when all they're trying to do is help the Sisters of the Poor? Talk about truth in advertising. So this makes good on the president's executive order that he signed on May 4th, which talks about how people of faith and conscience should not be bullied or intimidated or silenced. And this is just a big day for us. The vice president last night in the EOB had a reception for invited guests from the pro-life movement. He and our second lady, Mrs. Karen Pence, talked about their work over a number of years for crisis pregnancy centers, the fact they went to the march over a number of years with their then small children. But the vice president says something that we should all reflect upon, that Donald Trump is the most pro-life president in our nation's history. And the record shows that, and he's just getting started. He is committed to signing into law that pain-capable, halfway point, 20-week bill where nonpartisan scientists say a fetus can feel pain inside its mother's. It's a halfway point of pregnancy. We have to make a decision, folks. Are we a nation that looks the other way at abortion in the 8th and 9th month, sex selection abortion, pain-capable abortion? Are we that one that stands up for the very first right in our founding documents, the right to life?
It is a big day for March for Life, and of course a big day as well because today marks the conclusion of the first year of the Trump administration. Kellyanne, thank you very much for joining us over the last year.
Thank you so much.
All right, have a great weekend. Meanwhile,
he is accused of a brutal knife attack on a complete stranger, and he wasn't even supposed to be here. Guess how many times this illegal had been deported before that horrific crime?
Plus, plus, is it possible that one government agency doesn't need money? Mick Mulvaney said, yeah, I'm in charge of it. We're fine money-wise. Stuart Varney, who's always looking for money, is joining us right now. Am I right, Stuart?
So true.
Yeah.
Take a look. Let's get down to business. Amazon is on the search to find a second city somewhere in America for their second headquarters. They've narrowed the list now down from 238 locations to 20.
It was easier to pick Kelly Ripa as co-host than this. So could they be coming to a city near you? Here to weigh in is Stuart Varney, host of Varney and Company on the Fox Business Network. This is brilliant, though. Just getting money as we whittle down to find out what city, what state's going to benefit financially.
You are exactly right. 238, whittle it down to 20. Now you can pressure all 20 of them. What are you going to give me? What are you going to give me? I think you should pay very close attention to the 3 locations which are in or very close to Washington, D.C. Montgomery County, Maryland, Northern Virginia, and D.C. itself. Why? Because Jeff Bezos, founder of Amazon, he's got a house in Washington, D.C. He owns the Washington Post, and most important, Amazon is under huge political attack because of its extraordinary power. Bezos needs to be close to politicians to either influence them or get in on the debate.
So are those 3 cities, are they just rolling out all the stops to
They're all 20 of them are rolling out all of the stops. Like Newark, New Jersey, for example, that's on the list of finalists. Outgoing Governor Chris Christie offered them a $5 billion package the state of New Jersey. Oh, come on in.
That's right.
$5 billion worth of goodies if you just come here.
Well, down in Georgia, apparently the governor is thinking about calling a special session just so they can consider this particular offer.
Well, of course, everybody wants an Amazon second headquarters, 50,000 highly paid jobs, some very highly paid executives
but
right
go to
now.
a lower tax state.
Yeah, and also I want to see Amazon go to a state that could help. Washington doesn't need any help. They shrink wrap the place every day. That's the only thing that benefits regardless of recession. And as we saw, I don't know if we saw the map yet of all the states that are in the finals.
Yeah,
we got it. Yeah, okay, we had it down there.
Yeah,
all
it was on the
my prediction, Austin.
No,
really?
they've already got a big
I'm
place
thinking
in Austin.
Florida. I'm thinking Jeff Bezos has enough money to buy himself a house down in Florida. Florida's warm, no taxes.
Right, and he could probably
go.
pay for it in cash.
Meanwhile, something else we mentioned a moment ago, Mick Mulvaney, who runs the Consumer Protection Bureau, he's the temporary chief, he has told the federal government, we don't need more money because we got plenty.
How unusual is that?
That's crazy.
Since when have you had a guy who runs a government agency saying, I don't need any more money, and he doesn't? He's saying, you don't need to fund me for the coming 3-month period. I've got enough already. It's worth remembering that Mick Mulvaney is a former member of Congress, member of the Freedom Caucus, no friend of government agencies, and he essentially wants to end and abolish the Consumer Financial Protection Board, much to the chagrin of Senator Elizabeth
Didn't our
Warren.
president actually do that too? Say, I don't need a salary, I've got enough money?
Yes, but I think he was rather more pro-government than Mick Mulvaney, if I'm not mistaken.
He took over an agency to end the agency, perhaps.
Yeah,
he did.
Stuart, you joined us a couple of days ago and said, you know what, go ahead, close the government down. Looks like we're on the verge of that now.
Yes, and I have no objection whatsoever. The national interest is you fix immigration and you fix military spending. And the only way to do that, this is my opinion, bang heads together, put real pressure on them, you get a deal. Come on, get a deal. Do your job, for heaven's sake.
But doing the job is to finish, to not shut the government down. Well, that says failure.
Yeah, okay, it says failure. So now, get out of here and make sure you come back with a deal.
Right.
Get on with it.
I feel like Stuart's raising me. I just got reprimanded. Straight ahead.
Stuart, thank you very much.
We'll see you from 9 to every end.
Well, children say they're ditching their dreams of becoming pro athletes for a job kneeling FBI players might not like, but you're probably going to love it.
NFL players plus.
A university's new review process is targeting conservative speakers. Whatever happened to free speech? Question mark.
All right, time now for your news by the numbers. First, 500,000. That's how many barrels of oil per day TransCanada has secured to help move along construction of the Keystone XL pipeline. The pipeline will break ground next year and carry oil from Alberta, Canada to the refineries on America's Gulf Coast. Next up, number 3. Police officers taking 3rd place in the list of things kids want to be when they grow up. That's number 3. That's according to a new survey of children under 12. Athlete falls from number 1 to number 8. Wonder what that's about. I think we know. And finally, 23 million. That's how many viewers the NFL has lost during the highly anticipated Vikings-Saints playoff game on Sunday. According to Nielsen ratings, 35.6 million viewers tuned to Fox compared to 48.5 million for last season's game. And that's some of your news by the numbers. Now, here's Ainsley.
Thank you, Steve. New rules have been put in place at the University of Connecticut, including counseling when conservative speaker Ben Shapiro comes to speak. The university making those changes after chaos erupted during the speech of another conservative commentator. So would there be this kind of stepped-up scrutiny for someone that was speaking for the left? Joining us now is the president of UConn College Republicans, Tim Sullivan. They are the group that invited Ben Shapiro to come on campus. So he was approved, but when the last conservative came to speak on your campus, there were protesters, the speaker was arrested, charges were dropped eventually, and the president of your school said, hold on, we need to change some rules. We need to now review everything to make sure if we are going to have conservative speakers or speakers that everyone is safe. What were your thoughts when that first change happened?
Right, so for my biggest concern with this change is that there's going to be a discrepancy between who this event review process is for, mainly because there's no disruptions for speakers on the left. You don't see this for Antifa lectures. I've been to leftist talks before, and you don't have conservative speakers causing disruptions. They let the speak occur, and you have conversations. Right. So it's really our group and other conservative groups on campus that are going to have to go through this event review process. Now, there there are positive aspects of it. I think we can plan for security better this way, and it's definitely a learning process. But you have yesterday, for example, Anita Hill came to speak. It was open to the public. Our event's not open to the public. So there's definitely a discrepancy. It seems to be a double standard.
Well, then what blew me away, too, is what happened with the emails. Tell the folks at home what email you got.
Right, so I actually didn't get the email, but
Why didn't you get it? Didn't all students get it?
So say like we have cultural centers on campus, and certain minority students would get this email from the chief diversity officer offering counseling to students who may feel threatened by Ben Shapiro's presence on campus. I think that this is an uncalled for move. It's very unnecessary and even harmful. I think it causes a rational fear of conservative viewpoints.
Why would they feel threatened by him? I mean, he's just giving a speech.
I think it's a tactic on the left to shut out opinions they disagree with. And so rather than listening and using logic and debating, they just shut it out. They don't want to hear about it, and they bind to fear, really.
Well, Ben Shapiro has talked about it. This is his statement. He says, UConn's letter issued to the student body recommending that students who are upset by my speech preemptively visit counselors demonstrates the fear of conservatism runs high on college campuses. What's your reaction?
Well, this is exactly why the college Republicans are at UConn. You know, one of our main goals as an organization is to promote conservatism on campus, to give students that opportunity to learn about conservatism that they don't get in the classroom. Most of our professors at UConn, mainly in the social sciences, are left-leaning politically. So many students don't get the opportunity to learn about conservative values, ideas on public policy and social issues. So we try to make up the gap by hosting lectures, debates, etc.
What's so dangerous about Ben Shapiro and conservatives?
I don't know. It's just words, and I think it's pretty good ideology. So.
Well, the school did reach out. We reached out to the school. They did send us a statement. It says the school's intention is to facilitate the speech, not to prevent it. We don't regulate speeches based on content. This is purely to make sure that it is safe, secure, and protects everyone's rights. Your thoughts?
I will agree with the university and say that they have been helpful in providing security for this event and making sure that we have a venue and that we can go through and have a safe event. Again, I'm just concerned that other organizations won't have to jump through the same hoops.
Why isn't his open to the public and Anita Hill's was?
I'm guessing that more students are expected to come to this event, especially those who would disrupt the event. Go into the lecture, shout it down, try to hold up signs to block cameras, etc.
Tim Sullivan, thanks for being with us.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Appreciate it.
Did you hear what Nancy Pelosi said about the GOP budget deal?
This is like giving you a bowl of doggy do.
What does Michelle Malkin think about that one? She is next. Plus, we have seen Vladimir Putin riding a horse shirtless, right? Doing karate and even catching a massive fish. But this latest adventure might top them all.
It is fantastic. I saw a great portion of the first episode. They've been working so hard on this for over a year. It's the beginning of a series, and the first focus is on the Clinton years. It is awesome.
It's called Scandalous. It premieres this Sunday at 8 p.m. You'll have to watch.
All right. Meanwhile, let's dial in Michelle Malkin. She's the host of Michelle Malkin Investigates on CRTV. She's joining us right now from Colorado Springs.
Good morning.
How are you?
Good morning.
You
Good.
heard
How
about
are
this.
you guys?
You heard about the scandals during the Clinton years. Do you even remember, Michelle?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to put you on the spot.
That's right.
It's all a blur.
Hey,
Yeah.
Michelle, what do you make of last night? The House passed the short-term spending bill, and now they're kicking it to the Senate, where it looks like the Democrats, this is going to be their Alamo over DACA. They want DACA in the spending bill. If it's not, they're going to shut down the government.
Right. And I think that that is the narrative that needs to get out there. The Democrats are going to shut the government down because of 800,000 illegal aliens. Have they ever proposed shutting the government down to protest on behalf of American workers who've been harmed by immigration policies that have replaced them with cheap foreign labor? Have they ever threatened to shut the government down on behalf of families of victims of illegal alien crime? I think what's very useful here is that the priorities are now as transparent as ever. And also that the optics of this, the Democrats want to shut the government down at a time when the economy is booming, consumer confidence is at all-time high, and people are happy with the first year of the Trump administration and how it's affecting them in their pocketbooks. I mean, if these were private sector image consultants, they would be fired on the spot.
Well, the House did their job, and Jimmy Kimmel is not happy with it. He is slamming the Speaker, Paul Ryan, and his plan. He says, he wrote this in a tweet, as you know, tying CHIP to spending bill is not a clean CHIP vote. It's a transparent bid to lure Dems away from DACA. The majority, including Republicans, support a path to citizenship and full CHIP funding. Using kids' lives as bargaining chips is disgusting, so stop it. My question for you is, isn't that hypocrisy? Because aren't the Democrats doing the same thing? They're trying to tie DACA to the spending bill?
Yes, they certainly are. And we have to turn this on the left and these celebrity shills for the Democrat Party. I mean, what is Chuck Schumer now the communications director for Jimmy Kimmel? I think this is the second time now that he has tweeted Democrat talking points. And in fact, we know that Chuck Schumer was consulting with the late night comedian staff, if not himself personally. And you're absolutely right. Who's holding whom hostage to what? I think that there's a larger point here, and I've written about it before when Jimmy Kimmel has weighed in from his platform in Hollywood on policy matters. Why is it that celebrities like this get the moral authority card because they happen to have family members who have chronic illnesses? I have a daughter, as you guys know, who has chronic illnesses. That doesn't confer me with absolute moral authority to dictate what our health policies should be. It gives me some insight, certainly, but the idea that Jimmy Kimmel is now essentially the political pope of America, it's ridiculous. Does he realize that CHIP over the years has been expanded endlessly and has grown so far apart from what the initial purpose of the program was, to be able to allow low-income families who were above the threshold for Medicaid and yet could not afford private insurance, rather than addressing all the reasons that the costs of private insurance have spiraled out of control because of government regulations that are driving the costs up. They just want to shovel more money into it and expand it. I mean, we're not having that conversation because, of course, Jimmy Kimmel is God to whom we must bow down to.
You know, things are so polarized at night. He's only speaking to people of the converted. There's no one out there said, you know, honey, that's a great point that Jimmy Kimmel brought up. Plus, he should be transparent that Senator Schumer's been advising him. I mean, and that was during the whole debate before about killing Obamacare, repealing and replacing it. So that didn't come out till after, and now he's getting calls from the minority leader, and that's helping push their Democratic agenda.
Yeah, that's right. Hollywood meets the Potomac.
Yeah. We've got two sound bites that have been really big this week. The first one was Nancy Pelosi, where she was talking about how companies are giving bonuses to their employees in the wake of the tax cut, where she calls those crumbs. And then yesterday, when she was referring to CHIP being aligned with this short-term funding bill, she drew this comparison.
This is like giving you a bowl of doggy do, put a cherry on top and call it a chocolate sundae. This is nothing.
Michelle, that's exactly what you wanted to think about at 7:30 in the morning, right?
That's right. Well, you know, I always call these people Beltway crap weasels, and they sure have been putting the crap in crap weasel lately. And that's all you have to say about that.
Right.
I think that's it. All right, Michelle, thank you very much for joining us live today from Colorado.
Michelle.
And the Republicans' best way of keeping the House would be to run against Nancy Pelosi. It's worked in the past. If you want Nancy Pelosi to be your speaker, we know how you want to vote. And that'll keep
her analogies just are interesting.
Right.
Scapegoat and the definition of a scapegoat.
Yeah.
That one, Armageddon.
All right.
Right. Here's a woman who's not afraid to use analogies, just not now.
Good morning, guys. It's Friday. It's why I always stick with the vanilla sundae. So there's always a reason.
Yeah. You're pro-cherry, but not vanilla.
Exactly. All right, guys. Good morning. We do have a serious story to get to, including this: the deadly flu taking another young life. Third grader Zainab Momin dying hours after her parents rushed her to an Alabama hospital with flu-like symptoms. It's unclear if she received received the vaccine at this point. This, as a new study shows, the deadly virus can spread by just breathing. Researchers say infected people can release enough germs in their breath to get others sick. People are most contagious within the first few days of getting the flu. An illegal immigrant already deported 7 times is accused of brutally stabbing a stranger in the neck. Police arresting convicted criminal Ricardo Velasquez Romero for attempted murder. The Mexican national has a rap sheet that includes felony drug and weapon convictions. Police say moments after this surveillance video was taken, he attacked a 61-year-old man at a restaurant in the sanctuary state of California. That victim is expected to survive. All right, Russian President Vladimir Putin taking a shirtless dip in icy water, making the Feast of the Epiphany. Putin doing the sign of the cross and submerging himself in a lake, as you can see here. He showed up in a sheepskin coat and felt boots before taking it all off for the Orthodox Christian ritual, remembering Jesus' baptism in the River Jordan. That's just one of those videos, a visual that I could probably do with it.
Right.
But
I did not see the religious side to him, and just we've seen him shirtless,
right?
But never blessing
Many times.
himself.
Yeah. Okay.
Only Vladimir Putin can give himself a baptism. Congratulations.
Right, thank you very much. It is now 18 minutes before the top of the hour. Cold there. And what about here? Let's go outside to Janice Dean.
I've got some good news. We've got a warm-up on the way for much of the country. Let's take a look at the maps, and I'll show you where it is. I mean, it's 28 here in New York, but you know what? It's going to be 50 here this weekend. 33 in Des Moines, 30 in Tulsa, 25 in Memphis. It's cold really across the East Coast, but the warm-up is coming, I promise. Now, we do have a storm system moving into the west. That's going to be our next big weather maker, bringing heavy rain along the coast and big amounts of snow in the mountains. And this is going to be a traveler. It's going to move across the northern plains, the Rockies, and the upper Midwest, bringing the potential for blizzard-like conditions. But look at the forecast snowfall. A lot of snow as we head into Saturday and Sunday. But look at these highs. Look at 40 degrees in New York City. We will take it, and we're going to feel like springtime across the East Coast this weekend. So there's your good news. Happy Friday.
We are excited. The Friday dance.
That's all.
Bringing back the dance.
Yeah, it looks like somebody left those mimosas in the green room.
But you know what? The thing is, she could actually dance without music. Not many people can do that. If you can dance without music, please text us.
Meanwhile, reports there's a bombshell memo exposing just how far the Obama administration went to spy on the Trump campaign. Florida Congressman Ron DeSantis is one of the lawmakers who's seen it with his own 2 eyes. He's going to tell us as much as he can coming up.
And we showed you this picture yesterday. A 13-year-old girl climbs up that tree to rescue an American flag that was tangled in it. And that girl's going to join us live straight ahead with what inspired that patriotic gesture.